The concept of natural rights, as first introduced by Locke, essentially sets up a deontological set of moral rules for certain actions which, when ends are sought, the means are inherently immoral, regardless of the ultimate consequence. So, for example, the non-aggression principle set up today is an extrapolation of Locke's understanding of natural rights. The idea being, and this is held in many extreme right deontological libertarian crowds, that aggression in a physical and coercive sense is inherently wrong, and any action that includes it, either the use or threatening of it, is an inherently immoral action and should never be taken. Now, the only exception to this, as far as the non-aggression principle is concerned, is if one defends themselves, which is why the concept of what property belongs to which person becomes very important, because who is the victim and who is the aggressor in any given circumstance is dependent on who owns the thing that is being coercively disputed over. As a result, these natural rights theorists have also set up a long list of ways in which one ethically obtains property, by which the universe somehow decrees that they have a moral right to that thing. There's such theories have been set up, such as homesteading for land, and it all initially derives from Locke's understanding of how it is that things, without will, are owned by people. Locke's theory states that people have a moral, objective right to themselves, to the property of themselves. He frames things in the context of property rights, because they have the ability to exert their will independent of other people. Now, he goes on to explain that as a result of this, what he frames as an axiom, he goes on to say that as a result, people gain a property right in things that they take out of the state of nature. So by taking natural resources and putting them to productive use, a form of wealth creation, they somehow obtain this natural property right. This was a belief I ascribed to a long time ago. For long-time readers of my blog, they'll remember a post I made in November that explains my own theory on this, and I'm going to explain today why I think this belief is bunk. And there's two main critiques I'm going to give to Locke's initial theory, which I don't think deviates too far from later the Rothbardian and Hoppian explanation for natural rights, as is held in libertarian circles today. I'm then going to transition back to the non-aggression principle and explain why I think there are ethical problems as a result of an inherently flawed ethical system. The first main flaw in Locke's understanding is the problem of antagonistic interests. And so while he states that people have a property right in themselves to make their own actions, and initially this is also the Kantian understanding of natural rights, which is also commonly held, both of them share this idea that freedom is an inherent natural right because people are able to exercise it. The problem is that in certain situations, things in the world will be desired by multiple people who have similar interests, and as a result, when one of them makes use of it and coercively prevents others from doing so, he has thereby infringed on the natural rights of all other people by exercising his own. It is necessarily the case that when multiple rights-bearing beings interact with one another, some rights will have to fall in order for others to be exercised, which results in rights contradiction. And to explain this, consider the hypothetical example where a car somehow magically formed in the state of nature without anyone's work being exerted onto it. If I choose to make use of that car, even if I apply the typical libertarian set of ways, if I apply one of those ways to justly obtain that car, like if I homestead the car, I have still prevented all other people from being able to do the same thing. If I homestead the car, you can't homestead the car, he can't homestead the car, it's my car. The second main problem with Locke's understanding of natural rights is transitioning his axiom of ownership in oneself to ownership in things. And this is a pretty simple problem. The basic explanation being that his axiom simply doesn't carry over. If I have a natural right in myself as a result of me being able to exert my will, how it is that I have a natural right in things which have no will is an impossibility unless a second axiom is formed which has not been made. Some have gone so far as to explain that it is an extension of one's life when he takes things from the earth and transitions it into materials useful by people, but it just isn't the case. Those things objectively still don't have a will, and therefore, if we follow the logical conclusion of Locke's axiom, cannot be owned by anyone. I'm now going to make the careful and important distinction between the ethics of natural rights and the concept of legal rights. And this is something that I think is very important for libertarians to understand. If I believe in a society that accepts a legal structure that is similar to those purported by those who believe in a non-aggression principle, an ethical understanding of natural rights, it could be that I support that same idea, that same law structure, for a different reason, for a different set of morals. I happen to be a utilitarian. I think utilitarianism is something that can be objectively determined and reasoned as a hardcore moral ethic that solves the is-ought problem. Natural rights does not. But the point is, we recognize that in either one of these cases, whatever your goal is, a society under that law best achieves that goal. But this is why I'm still a libertarian. This is why, despite the fact that I don't think the universe gets offended in and of itself whenever one of these principles is broken, I do believe that when society is structured in a libertarian fashion, it is overall more likely to be prosperous. It is a better society than the many forms of dictatorship and always has been throughout history. But that's not the same thing as saying that ethics are exactly equal to abiding by this law. Imagine a hypothetical scenario where an asteroid is about to hit the Earth and kill all of life. And you can prevent it by stealing an item from your neighbor that is worth 1 nickel. Do you steal the item? And by a strict adherence to the non-aggression principle, the answer would have to be no. You should, as Kant famously stated, do what is right though the world should perish. You should not take the item because it inherently violates the moral law of natural rights. But in reality, I think very few natural rights theorists are unwilling to take the item. And the reason is because we all recognize on some level that really the preference for welfare that humans have, the welfare of sentient beings, is the thing that matters. And this is something I explain in the concept of my book In Progress, Foundation of Man, which surely all of you are going to buy. The only thing human beings have preference in is their welfare as determined by how they value differing sorts of emotions. And being that that is the only preference they hold, it is the only standard by which we can adhere, and the only context with which we can think, you could say, this doesn't really matter. We're still all libertarians, we're still all supporting the same thing. Why does it matter if you think we should have it for this reason, and I think we should have it for another? And on some level, that argument holds weight. I've been heavily influenced by a very large number of natural rights theorists. Rothbard, perhaps the most notable example, also Hoppe, also Bloch, all of them agree with exactly what I've just refuted. And by the way, as a side note, if it happens that one of the viewers of this video is a natural rights theorist and would like to propose another argument that I haven't considered, or would like to refute my refutations, please, I'm more than happy if you do so. But at the same time, I agree with them because, like I was stating earlier, the economic arguments that they make, and they are all very influential economists. Is Rothbard right on natural rights? No, I don't think so. Is Rothbard ever wrong on an economic subject? Not really, no.